Why is it that different cameras, even from different manufacturers, have the same sensor inside, and where other cameras do have only their own sensors? What is the difference? Who is actually manufacturing those sensors? And is there any speciality of these sensors that are just used inside of one camera? We're gonna find out in this video. Coming up. Hello guys, my name is Paul. I'm a German-based cinematographer, and this channel is all about filmmaking, gear reviews, but also DaVinci Resolve tutorials. So if that's something that you're interested in, consider subscribe. It's free, it helps the channel. So thank you very much. And please also consider coming to the Creator Summit. It's one of the biggest creator events here in the German area. We have the best speakers on stage covering various topics about filmmaking and photography. And we have all the brands that you know there: Lumix, Canon, Nikon, Sony, Blackmagic, Tilta, Holyland, all of them are there, you name it. And we also have a gear giveaway worth of 30,000 euros, so it will be crazy good. So 17th of January in Bayreuth, hope to see you there. First off, there are not many camera or sensor manufacturers out there. There are just a few, because it's very cost intensive to build and manufacture camera sensors. And remarkably, Canon is the only manufacturer or the only camera brand that's manufacturing their own sensors, and it's not licensing them to other camera brands. For example, the second biggest one is actually Sony Semiconductors, and they are producing a lot of sensors. And even Lumix buying their sensors, DJI is buying their sensors, Nikon is buying their sensors, and that's also the reason why the Lumix S1 Mark II and the new Nikon ZR share the exact same sensor. So then there are also other cameras, like for example the Blackmagic Pixels 12K, and you only see that sensor in that camera or in another camera from Blackmagic, but not in another camera. Why is that? And why you also don't see an ARRI sensor inside of another camera? Why is that? So we are talking about that right now. So they're kind of a mainstream sensor manufacturer, if you want to call that, and that's Sony Semiconductors. They're specialized in camera sensors, and for the other camera companies, it's just like very convenient to buy their sensors, put it inside the camera, and then figure out everything that way. It's kind of if you get a sensor from the shelf. So if you go to BMW and you buy a BMW 3 Series, you know that there's probably just another guy around the corner with the exact same car. So that's basically buying a sensor from the shelf, which you can do from Sony, and that's also why it's less cost intensive for these cameras to buy that sensor in terms of another sensor. But there's also the option to get a sensor, especially however you as a camera company like them. The resolution, dynamic range, readout speed, all the jazz, you're gonna order them probably from a company called Tower Jazz. And that's specifically the company that's manufacturing the Blackmagic 12K sensor. I also believe that they are manufacturing the ARRI sensors, and they are also producing a lot of the sensors for RED. And they have special agreements that they only manufacture these type of sensor for that specific camera manufacturer, and they share no other internals and stuff like that with other camera companies. So that's like, and this is obviously much more cost intensive, and that's why also you see most of these higher end sensors in higher end cameras. That doesn't mean that these other camera sensors that you can buy from the shelf are bad. I'm not saying that. The sensor inside the Lumix S1 II is a great sensor. Look, when I started out, I also thought like that every camera manufacturer is manufacturing their own sensors, but that's just economically not possible. It's just too expensive. And I just realized that when Jared Land, the president of RED, was asked how they're doing their own sensors, or if they're doing their own sensors. And he replied, you can have the best oven in the world. If your recipe is shit, then your bread will probably like shit. So that means that the camera sensor, the manufacturing process, is one part, but one very also important part is like the image processing. What goes on behind the sensor, how's the image pipeline, color rendering, dynamic range, and so on and so forth. And for example, I used to have the Zcam E2 F6 and I now have the Lumix S1H. And both cameras are sharing the exact same sensor, which is manufactured by Sony. So the sensor is exactly the same, and you also can see that by readout speeds and different stuff like that. But the dynamic range is better on the Lumix S1H than on the Zcam E2 F6. They're actually sharing the exact same sensor. Why is that? So as I've just said, the recipe, how the image is processed, how the image is built inside the camera is a very important factor that you should not underestimate. So bottom line is that there's like a company called TowerJazz, which you probably are going to if you want to have a camera sensor that's specifically tailored to your needs. And also Blackmagic used Sony sensors inside the Blackmagic Cinema 6K. That's a Sony sensor. And now with the 12K sensor, they wanted to have a sensor specifically tailored to their needs and what their engineers have in mind. So that's a very close cooperation between the company TowerJazz, which actually manufacturing the sensor, and the engineers from Blackmagic to have specific requirements. So I hope in the end I could demystify that sensor game, the sensor technology inside the camera branch. And I hope you learned something from it. And if you have any further questions, just drop them down in the comments below. Or if you find something that I probably didn't mention, then also drop it down in the comments below. I'm happy to talk with you, chat with you there, and see you in the very next one. Cheers.